Everybody, can you hear me? It is such a pleasure to be here today, to be with everyone who has come out, everyone from different races, colors, ethnicities, religions, standing with Black people to let us know that you feel our pain and you understand what we're going through. And that makes me feel so proud. And it makes me feel so happy that finally, this is getting the attention that it needs, the attention it deserves. So many people have died before George Floyd, and there have been protests, there have been rallies, they die down until the next death. And we're only seeing the deaths that have been caught on camera. So we can't even begin to understand what happens when there are no cameras rolling. But let me start by telling you how I got here today. I am a resident of Hillsborough for the past year, but I haven't always been a resident of Hillsborough. I came here from Jamaica when I was 17 years old. I came to this country. And my experience of racism, I understand, might be a little bit different from African Americans who were born in this country and whose ancestors were slaves in this country. My ancestors were also slaves, but they were slaves in the Caribbean. My experience is different because as a young child growing up in Jamaica, I was told repeatedly that I could be whatever I wanted to be. I was told that if I got enough education, I could be what I wanted to be. I was never told that anything could not be accomplished until I came to this country. When I came to America was when I realized African Americans grow up in this country being told what they cannot do and how undervalued they are, how they are not as smart, they are not as accomplished, they can't achieve what their white counterparts can achieve. And that has to do something to their psyche. It has to. You can't repeatedly tell someone what they can't do and how little they are valued in this society without it affecting them. I have a son who is growing up in this country. And I tell him every day how smart he is and how proud I am of him, because I have to counteract the images he sees on TV. I have to counteract what I know other people are going to tell him out there in this world. And that is important for everyone to understand. When we say Black Lives Matter, all those people who come out and say all lives matter, they don't get it. We know all lives matter. We know that. What we want is an opportunity to end the violence, the disparity of violence that are committed by the police against African Americans, mostly men. We need that to stop. And we need you all here today to help us make that stop. We can't do it by ourselves. We need the help of every American to end this. We all have to stand together. We all have to be dedicated to this fight. We all have to have conversations with our sisters or brothers, or fathers or mothers or grandparents or neighbors or friends. Have those conversations. They will not be comfortable. We can't affect change while being comfortable. to get out of our comfort zones to make change happen. And I am so heartened by all the young people who are showing up and showing out and realizing that change has to come with them because they are our future. So this is a little bit about my experience. How did I end up on this stage? Because there's an app called Nextdoor where people from your neighborhood post things. And usually it's posts like, oh, there's a chipmunk in my attic. What do? I need to build a new deck. Do you have any suggestions? Middle class problems. And we have one very brave high schooler who's one of the organizers here who posted, she posted on Nextdoor, Black Lives Matter. She posted the names of the people we know of who have been victims of police violence because they were black. And the trolls came out in force. All lives matter. Oh, get that chip off your shoulder. Oh, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Everyone knows it's kind of hard to pull yourselves up by your bootstraps if there's a knee in your neck. Woo! Woo! We have to have these conversations. And I shared on that site that I was walking with a neighbor recently. We were social distancing. And she was telling me about the neighborhood. My son is 13 years old, and he attends Hillsborough Middle School. He's in the 7th grade. And she said as we were walking, oh, that house there, when your son goes to high school, he's probably gonna cut across that neighbor's yard with the other high schoolers because they use it as a shortcut. And immediately, the red flags went up in my head. She didn't understand because she doesn't know, but as a black mother, I know that my child cutting through a neighbor's yard could get him into big trouble. I know that my child can watch his white friends cut through the yard, but if he does, he could be at risk. If someone posted, hey, so why don't you just get permission? Yeah, that would solve my problem. Unless my son carries a sign saying, I have permission to be here, who's gonna know? All he needs is one person to think he doesn't belong there, he shouldn't be there, for things to go crazy. Because black men, especially in this country, are seen as criminals and thugs just by the color of our skin. And that has to change. We are just as important as black people as everybody else in this country. This is a great country. It's always been great. It's the greatest country in the world, and we need to act like it. Our silence to people who seek to divide us, people who seek to separate us from each other, to make us fight with each other, that silence is complicity. We have to speak out. How can we solve these issues? We need to make our voices heard. We need to vote. Woo! This is an important year. We need to vote. We need to get our brothers and sisters, our mothers, our fathers, our neighbors out there to make our voices heard on that ballot box in November. We need to elect leaders who understand that these issues need to be resolved and they're going to pay attention to these issues. We need leaders with integrity.
Woo!
We have control over our lives. I've lived in many different places. When I came to this country, I lived in Newark. I went to a high school in Newark for a couple of years. I've lived in Irvington. And I'll just tell you a quick thing about my experience. When I lived in Newark and in Irvington, I went to the post office. There was bulletproof glass in the post office. And I thought that was normal because I'd never seen anything else. And at some point in my life, I moved to Rahway. And I went to the post office and I was amazed. There was no bulletproof glass. I could touch the post office workers and it would be okay. And what we need to understand is that our experiences are different from other people's experiences. Our lives are different as middle-class Americans than people who are living in the hood. Because I've been to the hood. How many of us have been to the hood? How many of us have been to the supermarket where you have to put a quarter in a cart to release it? Where there's no self-checkout because they don't trust the community. How many of us have been to a gas station at 5 o'clock in the afternoon? This actually happened to me. I went to a gas station in the hood in Newark. I was low on gas and I needed to get on the parkway. And I pulled into the gas station and I sit there in my car waiting for the attendant to come pump my gas. And I look around and I finally see one guy and I call him over. And he says, "Oh, you have to go pay in the middle." And I said, "Huh?" Because, you know, I'm a middle-class American. I've forgotten what it's like in the hood. And he said, "Yes, you have to pay for your gas in the middle." So I got out of my car and I walked to an enclosure in the middle of the gas station. And there was a bulletproof structure with one guy sitting in there. And there was a little opening where I slipped my money in and told him what pump my car was so he could open that pump. And as I walked back to my car, I saw other people just pumping their gas. And I look at them and I think, this is New Jersey. One of the things I like about New Jersey is that I don't have to pump my gas. Woo! So I walk back to my car and I wait patiently for the attendant, the one attendant at the gas station. This was why people were pumping their gas, because there's one attendant. But I refused to pump my gas that day. And I waited for the attendant to come back and pump my gas. This is how some people live. And we need not forget it. We have to have empathy for our brothers and sisters, regardless of their color. We have to have empathy for people who are disproportionately affected by police brutality. We have to have empathy for the poor and the disenfranchised. Because until we do, we won't be able to help them. This country shouldn't be great for just a few of us. It should be great for all of us.
Woo! Woo!
I know I'm probably running low on time, but I just have one more short story to share because this is supposed to be about our experiences. I've dealt with families in the 15 years I've been an attorney who have been affected negatively by drugs, heroin, crack, cocaine. And in the last few years, we've seen this opioid epidemic is sweeping America. And those of us who are in the know look at each other and says, huh? We've been dealing with heroin addiction for years. But the problem was that it affected black people, brown people, poor white people. When it spread to middle-class white America, because Becky had a car accident and she was prescribed Percocet and Oxycodone, and she got hooked, and at some point she couldn't afford the pills anymore, and someone told her she could buy some heroin. She could buy a dime bag for $10, which would give her that high. And Becky got hooked on heroin, and there became more Beckys and more Beckys in middle-class America, and the problem finally got recognized. This is part of systematic racism, people.
Yeah. Yep.
This is part of systematic racism. We cannot allow these things to happen. Some people do not have a voice in this country. We need to level the playing field. There is enough to go around for everybody. Don't feel threatened. No one is coming to take what's yours. Everyone needs to have an opportunity. We need, as a people, to have change happen. We should, as our MC said at the beginning, when we leave here, continue the conversations. It's important. It will be uncomfortable sometimes, as I said before, but we have to do the hard stuff. We have to do it, people. So let me wrap up, because I could go on about, I'm passionate about this. I'm not an activist, but I felt it was important for my voice to be heard.
Woo!
So, what are we going to do when we leave here? We're going to talk to each other. We're going to continue the conversations. What are we going to do in November? We're gonna
Vote!
because Black Lives
Matter!
Thank you.